Hi, this is Roger Moore, and you're listening to James Bond Radio.
Hello, and welcome to James Bond Radio, 30 Days of No Time to Die. In today's episode, we're talking about the very, very end of the film and what a controversial ending it is as well for many, many people. Joining me today, as per usual, is Mr. Chris Wright. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing very well, Tommy. How are you doing? Last part of the movie reviews. Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling excited? Are you feeling nervous? How are you feeling?
Man. Well, I tell you what, I predict that this will be a talking point for many decades to come. It'll be one of those things, you know. Should they have? Shouldn't they have? Is it the right thing? Is it the wrong thing? Do you love it? Do you hate it? And I to be honest, I understand both angles with these things, you know. There's a part of me that really doesn't like it. But there's a part of me that's like, well, actually, I think it really works for Daniel's Bond and all those kinds of things. So yeah. How about you, man?
Do you think when Majesty's first came out, obviously it's a bit different to these days because you've got social media, you can see everything millions of times over and communicate with people. Do you think when people went to see Majesty's back in the day, because we know it didn't do as well financially. Part of that was a run time as well. But do you think people came out of that and there were people that were angry and saying, how could they have killed off? How could Bond get married, number one? How could they kill Bond's wife and end on a downbeat ending, number two? Do you think it sort of evoked the same reactions?
Maybe for the casual moviegoer, because, but at the end of the day, it is a Fleming story, and that you would have gone in, most nerds like us would have gone in having read the book and knowing the story and knowing it's coming. So I imagine it's a bit different for there. But I don't know, there's a difference, isn't there? Because you know most of the women in Bond's life are going to end up dead. That's just how it rolls. You don't go in expecting Bond himself to die, do you? And that's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing that people will be debating for decades to come, I reckon. So yeah, and it's about to happen in today's episode, Chris. So you ready for it, mate?
I am. That just made me think. I wonder if Danny Boyle has seen the film or is going to watch a film, and if so, what his thoughts are on the ending, and if he thinks, you see, I was right, shouldn't have gone there, or if he thinks actually they managed to pull it off. Strangely,
If there was anybody I'd love to sit down and have a chat to off the record, because you know you couldn't.
I don't think you're getting.
We ain't getting him on JBR. Or mate, I mean, hey, if Zawitsky got Barbara on, anything's possible. You never know. But I think I would love to sit down, buy him a pint, and be like, Mr. Boyle, tell me everything. I want to know every last detail of about what happened, and I bet you it would be intriguing. You know, maybe you was like, I wanted to take Bond into space and do Moonraker 2, in which case, you know, that's a whole different ballgame, isn't it? But there we go.
Okay, so this is it. This is the climax, the final part of the film. So at the moment, we've got Bond is by himself. He said goodbye last time we saw him. He said goodbye to Madeline and Mathilde and Nomi as they sort of went out on the little boat into the white light. He's armed with the detonators. He's by himself. So this is a point where he's speaking to Q and M, who are kind of keeping him informed as he's sort of making his way through the facility. Bond tells them that they need to launch the missiles to destroy the island on his mark. He's basically said, you know, it's a massive manufacturing plant for Heracles, needs to be destroyed. As soon as Bond gives his mark, it needs to go. M and Tanner are in MI6 and Tanner's like, we don't have authority for this, do we? And M's like, So it's clear that, you know, there is no authority. So it's quite a big moment, I think. And as Q mentioned to Bond, he has to open the silo doors first, which he already knew about. Otherwise, the missiles will bounce off like a trampoline, as Q says. So we know. So this is good because this is the countdown thing that we needed. I don't think the whole bias thing that we mentioned yesterday, we've got it here because we've got the missile launch, haven't we? So that's the countdown thing that we needed.
I suppose the thing is why does the launch have to happen now? Do you know what I mean? It's like, why isn't Bond back on the boat and then they launch the missiles? So you need something to speed it up for them to actually make the launch of the missiles sooner rather than later.
Well, I guess as soon as Bond, obviously we haven't got to that yet, but as soon as he opens the silo doors, it's like, right, fire now, because otherwise maybe the buyers would get there So maybe that's why the buyers are there potentially.
Maybe or wait for the buyers and kill the fucking buyers with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. But we'll see. So Bond, he's basically making his way through the facility. He gets back to the farm, and he sees all the army, sort of the soldiers in the factory. And this is a nice part where he's got the detonator hiding behind, and the explosion is a real meaty one. I do like that. And then he does the classic Craig style, tosses away the detonator. And in fact, I know you mentioned that in one of the earlier podcasts, but we've had a lot of people come back with the Craig tossing things away, and there are a lot. There's at least like 2 in each film that he's done. So it's definitely like a trope of his that he likes to do, which I thought is pretty cool. And we get this great bit, actually. It's a small moment where he's going through the facility, suddenly hears something, turns and shoots, and we see it from a view down a tunnel, very much like the gun barrel, and that I thought was very cool. You don't see who he shot, you just see the turn and shoot. Did you like that moment?
Yeah, I did. I assumed, because that's in the trailer, isn't it? That's how the trailer ends, and I assumed that wasn't going to be in the film. That was just like a cool trailer moment thing. But yeah,
what if they had used that as the actual gun barrel?
Wouldn't have liked it, Chris.
No, I didn't think so. Neither would I.
Especially not in his Jaws outfit. I need him in a tux or a suit.
Yeah, totally. But it was quite a cool shot. That I like that. And so his mission at the moment, he's trying to find the control room, isn't he, to open the silo doors? And he gets into that little bottom of the stairwell bit, and there's a grenade that comes down, falls at his feet. He quickly grabs it, lobs it back up, and it explodes. But through the sort of debris above him, 3 more drop beside him, and he just about manages to leap out of the way. I still don't know how. And obviously they go off and sort of blows up next to him. So if you think about it, he's had Vesper's grave that sort of knocked him for 6. He's had the trawler with Felix when the mines went off there. He's had this bit here with 3 hand grenades that have just gone off next to him, and he has another hand grenade in a minute further up the stairs. He's not had a good time when it comes to things blowing up next to him, has he?
Tinnitus, Chris. That's the thing. You would have the old ringing of the old ears, and he'd be stuck with that on a pretty deep level. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. Okay, so this is the part now where we start doing the stairwell sort of fight. So it's a one-shot Charlie, this, isn't it? It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah. There's some information, a bit more that from Fukunaga and Co. So we'll go through that in a minute. But yeah. So just before we get onto that, do you like the stairwell scene? Do you think it's too computer game like, or are you you're not keen on it at all? What do you think?
I would say, I know what you're saying. I almost feel the style of the last 2 have some computer gamey style action sequences. Obviously, after he escapes from Blofeld's chair, and Spectre with the little stickmen in the horizon, very computer gamey. I would say perhaps even the Cuba sequence has a bit of that flavor to it as well. Yeah,
that's true.
The Range Rover driving sequence, Land Rover driving sequence, feels a bit like that, maybe. Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's. I like the idea of it because it's a sort of. I mean, ultimately, what I want from my Bond climax is many ninjas and many baddies.
Always the ninjas
going head to head and Bond like doing stuff within the larger battle. Right, that's what I'd really like to see again. This is quite a unique thing, isn't it? In the sense that it's a nice idea that he's got to get to the top of the tower, and it's like, and it is very video gamey, I guess. I do like it. I don't dislike it. I guess it's something we haven't really seen from Bond before. We've seen a lot of running and shooting, obviously, but this feels a bit more personal. You're really close in behind him, aren't you? And I guess maybe that's what gives you the video game feel. But yeah, I kind of like it. I think it's that close knit, tight in on the action thing.
It puts you right in.
It really does.
It really makes you feel you're a part of it. And I know some people have said they thought it went on a bit too long. Some people have mentioned the computer game side of things, but then I know, like a lot of people said they love it as well. For me, I think it is engaging, and it does make you. I remember sitting on the edge of my seat when we first watched it in the premiere, sort of going, because there's a lot that goes on. And what I do like as well is it's there's a bit that it's not just Bond, so he's chatting to Q and M and all that, which kind of helps. Why you got a nice little smile on? What are you laughing at?
It was just the way your reaction to it. Saw it first time in the premiere, and I was like, oh. And as if it was, but don't worry, I carry on. I'm just being silly.
Overall, I think it's a good scene, and I think what they tried to do, well, we'll find out in a minute now what they tried to do, was exactly what you said, like a bit of an experience. You're experiencing how Bond is experiencing it.
Yeah.
And I think from that aspect it works. So here's a bit more of an outtake. So this is Carey and Co. A bit more information. So since it was to be Craig's final piece of action as Bond, Fukunaga wanted something exceptional to round off the actor's tenure as 007. So with supervising stunt coordinator Oliver Schneider, they choreographed an almost 3-minute long sequence that would feature Bond, machine gun in hand, climbing a stairwell, taking out baddies with bullets and grenades, crashing back down the stairs and wrestling with Primo before finally making it to the control room. So they dubbed it the Brutal Stairs sequence, which was designed to be filmed as one single uninterrupted take, which in the industry is referred to as a one-er. Carey is keen on doing long takes, and I told him the stairs would be the perfect moment to do a one-er, said Schneider. The way to make it special is to stay with Daniel all the time and play up all the confusion and disorientation, because it's very dark, there's smoke, you hear gunfire, but you don't know where the bad guys are, so you get surprised all the time. Carey was very keen on that, as was Daniel. So obviously Fukunaga's done long shots in quite a lot of his stuff. There's a 4th episode, True Detective. Have you seen True Detective?
I don't think I have actually.
It's really worth watching. Like I don't think he did the second series. I think it was only the first, but really worth watching. And there's an episode, the 4th episode apparently, and he does this 6-minute tracking shot through all these houses where there's sort of gunfire going on, and it's incredible. It's really a piece of genius, that. And he'd written several one-ers for No Time to Die, although the Brutal Stair sequence was the only one filmed. So that got me thinking, well, what other scenes, what other scenarios would he have done a one-er? Apparently Fukunaga admitted, I would do 10 one-ers a film if I could. I would have done Cuba as a one-er. So there you go. Like you said, that's similar to the video game sequence. So that's probably what he had in mind. If you're making a film that's coming from the experience of a character, there's nothing that puts you in the present tense more than a one-er. I think what makes this James Bond film different to the others is it's more of a personal experience. It's Bond's perspective versus a God's eye perspective. And when you're in Bond's perspective, one-ers put you right there with him. They increase the tension and the thrill of the moment. I like being with characters for that long. In cinema, we're always looking for the aesthetic experience. And Sangren concurs, the less you cut, the more immersive it is. He favours the longer takes as well. So I bet they're not fans of Quantum of Solace then, with that quick cut editing. Completely not. So Sangren says, it's really beautiful to stay in shots and follow someone or be with them without cutting, because it feels like you're there. A one-er has to be a singular point of view, and this was the perfect moment in the movie for that. So while the Brutal Stairs will appear to be one continuous take, in reality it was 4 shots digitally attached together. It works because the stitches are done the smart way, says Fukunaga, who opted to shoot handheld to double down on Bond's confusion. We chose very deliberately when to go handheld in the movie because we didn't want it to be all handheld, said Sangren. We would shoot handheld when it was emotionally motivated, even in dialogue scenes. Sometimes Bond is in control and we're smoothly flying along with him. At the end of the movie, he's not in control, so the handheld felt motivated when we were following up the stairs. It was very intense. So obviously you mentioned your thoughts on the stairwell scene. Are you a fan of one-ers? Obviously, we had that one at the start of Spectre, which I thought was pretty cool. Is that something you like in a film, or do you think you can have too much?
To me, that's great. I think because there's skill involved. Obviously, like you said, it's been stitched together digitally. Like in Spectre, you can tell where something funky's happened when they go through the doorway and you look at those posters. There's like a little weird visual thing that happens, and you can see something funky's happened there. Yeah. So it's not obviously a true oneer, but I do like it because I think it forces you to be creative and do things for real. You know what I mean? Like I say, obviously it's been stitched together, but as a whole, it's a creative thing because obviously you're going to be slightly limited in some ways, and sometimes I think that's a great thing. It's when you have limitations put on you, it forces you to be creative instead of making a little scissor plane that becomes a submarine on a computer, and ultimately just becomes empty. So yeah, I'd fully support more of that. I love the Spectre one, and I think this works really well. And like he was saying about you're right in there in the action, and it feels like you're 008 going up the stairs behind him as you're in it together. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I think that's a great thing. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I really enjoy it. I think it's just the intensity that really gets you. And I think obviously when it's done well, it works. When it's done not so well, you'll know it's happening in a weird way. If you're thinking, oh, I'm watching a oneer, then it's not doing its job. You need to be immersed in it. And I think this...
Sorry, I was going to say, it's almost like, I think the best ones are when you don't really realize it is until afterwards and you go, hold on, was that all one shot? And then you go back and watch it again and you're like, holy shit,
There's like a 20-minute oneer in 1917. Have you seen the war film?
I have, yeah.
Sam Mendes. Isn't that like the start of that? It's got like a 20-minute oneer or something. That's crazy like that, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, that is.
But even with this, even though they said like there's 4 shots in 3 minutes is still pretty amazing. But yeah, and a lot happens. Obviously, he's blown back by another grenade. He takes out a few more guards. I like the part where he uses one as a human shield. He might even use 2 as a human shield at one point. And then he gets to the top, and then he fights Primo. And although it's not as long, it's very much a Casino Royale style stairwell fight. There's lots of smashing against walls. Yeah. And the bit where they fly down the stairs, like crash down the stairs together, and he grabs him from behind and he's strangling him almost in exactly the same way as he does with Urbano, doesn't he?
Yeah. That thought crossed my mind the first time I saw it. Yeah,
and which I loved. I thought that was brilliant. It's really, really sort of a hardcore, strong fight. But then we get to that point where I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on. Obviously, he's got Primo in that sort of headlock. He's squeezing him, but then he adjusts his watch. Engages the EMP, and then we get that bit. We see the eye sort of almost spark a little bit before it goes poof, and then obviously his head slumps, and we get a line, but the payoff isn't immediate. This time we have a bit of hesitancy, so Bond can catch his breath. Obviously, he's speaking to Q on the earpiece. And the whole audience knows something is coming. The whole audience knows he's going to say something. You can't have that happen in a Bond film and not have the following line and not have a following line. So there's that hesitation, and then it's, I just showed someone your watch. It really blew their mind. And then everyone cheers and claps, and that's what they were waiting for. So I know you're not a huge fan of Primo. What did you think of the fight, as short as it was, and the death and the line?
I like the fight. I think that's really good, really brutal. Like you say, reminds me of the Stairwell fight in Casino. Nice little bookend there. I guess nice way to dispatch him so the watch does something.
Hoisted by your own petard as well.
That's true. Definitely. I like a bit of petard. Yeah, that's nice. The line's all right. I'm not like, it's not that last hand nearly killed me, which I love. Yeah, it's like it's a bit of a groaner. Like people groaned, I think, in the Leicester Square viewing we did on the Thursday.
He had an eyeful.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, you could have had a poster of a bird with their boobies out on the wall, and then that's what the last thing he sees as the things. He had quite the eyeful. That would have been a Roger moment, wouldn't it? Yeah. Hey, come on. So to me it's all right. I really do like the fight though. I think the fight's a nice brutal piece of work. Yeah, I'm still a little bit 50-50 on the eyeball.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I'm not too bad on it. I think I don't mind it. I think in terms of how it works in the plot with Blofeld having the other one to communicate with, I'm okay with it. But that whole slightly comical side of things does come into it, but I don't mind. And the lines, I mean, the line is what it is. It's not bad. But the fight's decent, I think. Yeah. So eventually then Bond finds the control room. It's this proper old school sort of style place with loads of big switches and clutch handles and everything like this. So he's speaking to Q. He needs to turn on the power, which he does. but he needs to work out the sequence to open the silo doors. And I love how Bond is just like flicking every switch, turning everything, and Q's like, right, it has to be, the order needs to be really precise, Bond, to open this properly. And then before he's even finished his sentence, Bond's like, oh, I've done it. It's opening, I think. Yeah. And then you get quite a cool, nice shot. So you see the silo doors opening, then Bond kind of peers over and you see the Garden of Death, the pond sort of moving out and all the water rushing down. And I think that's really, really cool. Mm-hmm. And obviously he succeeds in opening it. And as soon as he's done that, right, he orders M launch the missiles. And I like that moment. You see M, he's kind of slouched a little bit in the chair, but he's like properly focused. And M speaks to the HMS Dragon captain, gives him the permission to launch, even though he has no authority. And I love that about this M. I think he's brilliant, and he doesn't care, what repercussions are. He's doing it because he believes in Bond. They've had a testy relationship in this film, particularly early on. They didn't get on. But if Bond is telling him, you need to launch the missiles because we need to blow this place up, otherwise there will be no world to save, the line he says earlier. M's like, Bond is my boy. Okay, we've had a riff, but Bond is my boy. I'm believing him. I'm going to do what he's suggesting. And he does that. And I think that is brilliant. What about you?
Yeah. It's a tricky one. M sort of, we've got some different stuff for M to play with this time, haven't we? M's been a naughty boy, hasn't he, Chris? Yes, really. I mean, he's caused all sorts of trouble.
And that wasn't even one time in Tokyo, was it?
No, absolutely. So it's an interesting one. But it's that. I don't think we've ever seen Bond and M be this facing each other off and going head to head ever, have we? I mean, they've had their back and forths, but it's never been quite this confrontational and so on. But yeah, it's definitely an intro. I feel like you could do huge amounts of discussion on just the whole M angle on this, because ultimately it's all his fault, isn't it? Really, a huge chunk of it. It's an interesting little angle, really.
Definitely, yeah. But I do like the fact that he sort of is backing up what Bond suggests and goes ahead with it, which is great. So at the moment, the missiles are launched. I like the shot. The missiles actually, the amount of smoke and flames with the missile launch from the Dragon. I think that's very, very cool. So while Bond is making his escape, he's sort of running along quite casually, I thought. But anyway, he's running along and he stops and looks and sees Doo. Oh, Matilda's little teddy, which I thought is very cute, and sort of stuffs it under his braces, doesn't he? Yeah. And he's like, I'm going to give that to her sort of in a moment. Yeah. And he's about to go again when suddenly the silo doors start closing. It's like, oh, fuck, that's not good. And then he obviously needs to go to open them again. And at that point, he runs through the poison garden. And this is where we get the other Safin Bond confrontation. So obviously Safin shoots him several times from behind. Bond basically face plants into the pool. Mm-hmm. And then Safin's basically, look at all the mess you've done, like an animal. And then Bond charges at him and they have their little sort of scuffle. Safin has that insurance, the vial with the DNA coded to Madeline, sort of obviously hits it across Bond's face and scratches Bond's face with it. So he knows it's the nanobots and the poison and Heracles and everything is all getting right into the bloodstream. And then you get that moment where Bond, he's got Safin's arm against his leg or something, and there's a real intense moment where it just goes crack. Yeah. And like Safin screams and Bond's just broken his arm. It's a real sort of shocking, brutal moment. Yeah. But I think it's great because obviously he's got the rage. But then it goes from that high intensity of the anger and the fighting and the shots and everything to Safin kind of being quite calm. And the realization sets in and he says, 2 heroes in a tragedy of our own making. Another reference to Greek tragedy there, which is quite cool. But yet now we've sealed our fate as one another. Anything you touch, like a kiss or a hug, dies with her. Yes, Madeleine. Yes, Mathilde. And then Bond obviously realizes he will never be able to touch them again. He's infected. It's coded to their DNA. With the nanobots, they're going to be killed. And then Safin's like, you made me do this. This was your choice. And I love how Bond just picks the gun out of the water, doesn't even look at Safin. He's looking away. 3 shots, walks off.
Yeah.
Love it. What do you think of this little exchange, the fight, Safin's death? Do you think it's a fitting demise? There is obviously no one-liner afterwards.
No.
Which I think is right, given the circumstance. But what do you think about the sort of confrontation and...
This is where I start to get upset because
really?
I
okay,
knew.
right.
I knew, like, I didn't know he was going to die on first viewing, right?
Yeah.
But I knew when he's running across that garden and then he takes, like, is it maybe 2 or 3 shots?
It's at least 3, I think. Yeah.
And you see Bond get shot 3 times and he sort of stumbles forward into that thing. And
like,
that was the moment I was like, oh fuck,
shit.
this is game over here. This is,
because that's a lot he's been through.
And that breaking of the arm thing, that's really quite dark and brutal for a Bond film. I thought that's you don't usually see. Like, the thing with the eyeball, obviously, is quite a gruesome thing, but it's also a bit comical as well.
Yeah, comical.
Whereas, like, literally breaking somebody's arm over your knee,
and you can hear it as well.
And it's not like the camera cuts away a bit or anything like that. It's like right in your face. Yeah, it's a very brutal thing. And like you say, you've got that final sort of realization where he realizes that's, he's been infected with it and all the rest of it. And I guess that thing where he doesn't even look at him is that he's realized that that's happened now, and that's he knows there's only one way he can go from here.
Yeah.
And that there doesn't need to be a one-liner or any hoisting of the petard because this motherfucker isn't important anymore. Like, just get rid of him, get him out of the picture, and let's get on to what's really important, which is obviously Madeleine and Matilda. So I do like, usually I would say, oh, that's a bit, like Stromberg's death is a bit weak in the sense that, he needed to get a fish shoved up his back door or something. But in this case, I think that cold-blooded bang, 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 okay, and then we go into the final scene. Is quite fitting. I think.
I think so.
Because that's not just a lazy way of killing him. That's what you would do because time's running out. This motherfucker doesn't matter. I've got to get on the phone to the missus and the baby and say my goodbyes because there's only minutes left. So I think that works for me.
And do you like the whole thing with Safin breaking the vial against his face and making sure that he's infected and stuff?
If I'm honest, I wish it was Blofeld doing it, but it is what it is. And so it's that thing that gives Bond that reason to die, which hey, that was the title of the film at one point.
There we go.
And maybe it still should have been that, I think, but who knows? We can debate that in one of the listener debate episodes. But so it's there. It is. We've dispatched him, and then this is the bit that gets me, man. Fuck, when he climbs all the way back up, and he's talking to Q on the thing, and he's can you put Madeleine on, please? And then that, I think the bit that really gets me is, like we said before, where Q twigs what's happened.
Exactly. Yeah, he's like, "Oh, and Madeleine's the target." Yeah,
and he's like, "It's all right, it's all right." And there's that, like I say, echoing the George thing at the end of Majesties. And it's very uncomfortable for everybody. I think this part, it's like, whether you love the film and you think this is a beautiful, correct ending for Daniel's Bond, or whether you're on the other side of the coin and you're like, I don't think Bond should have died, it feels like he gives up too easy, blah blah blah. You should have at least tried to find some sort of cure, tried to find some sort of solution. That's the Bond I know, and I understand that argument. I completely see both sides of the coin with this, but whichever way you spin it, this is an uncomfortable watch for us as Bond fans, isn't it? Seeing our hero coming to an end, man.
Well, he's bleeding pretty bad as well. He's been shot, obviously, quite a lot. He knows he's been infected. In that moment where he opens the silo doors again, and he's basically saying to Q, so obviously he's sort of saying, how do I get rid of it? And he sort of says, oh, well, open the silo doors, we'll destroy it. No. How do I get rid of Heracles? How do I get rid of the nanobots, the virus? And Q reminds him, he's already told him, but he reminds him, you can't, it's eternal. And then he realizes, Madeleine's the target. And you're right, that it's all right, Q. It's all right. I thought that was brilliant. That's really, really nice. He obviously pushes the lever so the ladder comes down. And the music here is fantastic. Final Ascent, I think, is a cue, sort of builds up the moment, and he's slowly sort of going up the ladder. Asks Nomi to put Madeline on, or Q, sorry, or one of them, I think, gets Nomi to put Madeline onto Bond. She asks, about Safin. Bond said Safin's dead, and he's glad that she's safe. But then he has to say he's not going to make it.
Mm.
And May, this is where it gets a bit emotional, I think.
Yeah, it does.
And Madeline, obviously, she starts crying, saying, everything is good now. There's no one left to hurt us. And then what do you think of this next Bond line? This next Bond line, not on the premiere, but maybe because I couldn't hear it properly, but afterwards, this next line really got me, as it has done for a lot of people. Do you want to say the next line and then let's
go on, you do it, because I've not got my notes by me.
Oh, right, okay. So he says, you made the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. She's perfect because she came from you. And like, there are a lot of people who don't want that from their Bond. They don't want Bond emotional. They don't want Bond talking about families and kids and everything like that. And okay, I get that, but it is just well, in my opinion, I think it's just done so well. It's the fact is that he can't see them again. There isn't a cure. It's eternal. We've been told that. He's also shot, so he's pretty bad.
Fucked up.
Pretty fucked up anyway. And it's the fact that he knows that he we saw earlier on in the Norway scene that he truly loves Madeline. He always loved her, and he always will. And he didn't know he had a child, and he's had to go through all that emotion of suddenly realizing that Matilda's his. Probably thinking, oh my, how amazing their lives are going to be together, to suddenly realizing this is it. He'll never be able to see them again, never be able to touch them again. Mm-hmm. And then saying that line, man, that really got me. And then obviously he follows it up. Madeline then says, we just need more time. If only we had more time. Mm-hmm. And then Bond comes back with, you have all the time in the world. And that, I think, is the right time to use that line. And I think it's great how it's used there.
Yeah. What first thing I will say is I think Madeline is amazing in this scene. Like, super, you really feel it every moment of it.
She's fantastic.
She really is the business. I think what it is, man, I think for those people who have kids, this is a particularly powerful moment for a lot of people, especially if you've got a daughter. But it is that thing, man. Like, now I've got my little Charlie boy, little baby Charlie, and it does have quite a magnetic power over you. When you look at your little baby and you look into his little eyes and he smiles at you or whatever, it is the most magical thing. It really is. And to know that Bond has didn't even realize he had a kid, and there it is, and he has that life that he's, I guess, always told himself that he couldn't have, he could never have because he's a 00, and there it is, so close but so far, and now he realizes that that's it, it's gone forever. What a heartbreaking fucking thing that is. And I get that. I do. I feel that fucking heartbreak for him at the end now. I really, really do. That whole thing of, do I want to see that from my Bond? I still don't really know. It's like, it's that thing of like, do I go to a Bond film to see a tragedy? Not really. I go to see my GoldenEyes and my Living Daylights pre-title sequences to see this badass dude. So again, I get those people who aren't a fan and don't like this ending and are uncomfortable with it. I get it, because maybe that's not what you want from your Bond. But let's face up to it. It is what we got. It is a Bond film. It is No Time to Die. It is Daniel Craig's goodbye to the whole series. And I think, fuck, man, what a powerful way to send him off. It really is and again, it's that thing that this is new territory we've not seen before. It's new stuff. So again, that adds another layer of it being uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar, and it's like, we've never seen Bond like this before. In the same way you see Bond puking in Casino Royale. You'd never seen Bond puke before. Whoa, this is weird. I'm kind of on the back foot. I don't know how to process it. It's the same sort of thing, obviously way different, but same kind of idea of something we've never seen before that you don't usually get from your Bond. So yeah, man, what a powerful thing. I'll be honest, I hated it on my first viewing when he's like, you made the most beautiful thing. I'm like, oh my God, I was actually disgusted by it on my first viewing. I was like, this is not what I want from my Bond. What the fuck have they done with this? And did not like it. Some reason, some weird magical thing twisted me in the second viewing, and the second time round, total opposite. I was like, whoa, this is an intense ending, you know. So yeah, and it's like that thing where you see him sort of like get off the ladder and he sort of shuffles over and he's got doo-doo tucked in his waistband.
That shot where where he's looking up as well.
Yeah.
So while this is going on, you get a brief from Madeline and Matilda Nomi, who are looking up at the sky and seeing the missiles, and you know, they say they love each other. I love you too.
Yeah.
And then I love that bit where Madeline's like, she does have your eyes. And it's the first time sort of Madeline's kind of acknowledged she's yours. I think it is anyway. And then Bond, that you get that almost hero shot where it's a low angle of him sort of looking up, like you said, with doo-doo under the braces, and then you look up and you see the missiles coming down, and he's like, I know. And then like that look on his face, that it's weird. It's like it's accepting what's about to happen, but it's happiness that he's, for that short period of time, you know, knows what happened, you know, that he had a daughter and everything. And that's mixed with the tragedy of not being able to see them again. So it's a complete mix of emotions. And just, you see the missiles coming down towards him, and then the missiles strike. And I like it how your camera's kind of behind Bond, and you just see them sort of land slightly in front of him, then closer, and then gets him. Man, I think when I first saw that at the cinema, I was like, shit, dude. I caught, you know, obviously the whole thing about Bond dying had been talked about in the community for the last, you know, good couple of years at least, like in terms of it being a possibility. And so it wasn't a complete surprise, particularly when what we saw with the gunshots and then the violent stuff, but it still hit home, and I was like, whoa. But just overcome with emotion as well, I think. And for me, I agree with you in terms of A, obviously it was incredibly powerful, and B, it is the perfect way in my eyes for Daniel's Bond and his tenure to finish. I know from what we can gather, it is Daniel's idea for that to happen, and I think it worked absolutely brilliantly. I know there are people like who really are not happy with it, some of which we'll talk about in a minute, but I just think seeing it really, really hit home. And then it cuts back and obviously we see everyone sort of responsive. We see Q, Bond's vital signs are dead, and you see everyone's sort of mournful reactions and stuff. So obviously, I wouldn't change it. I'd keep it as it is, but there are alternatives. So firstly, would you keep it as it is? Would you make Bond survive, or would you potentially leave it as a ending that's indeterminate, so you don't quite know if he made it or not? Because quite a few people want to. Do you know what I think
we should do? I think maybe we should do one more episode this week with our final thoughts on the whole film of what we should change, summarize everything, and then do our listener discussion points next week. What do you reckon? Should we come back tomorrow and do that?
And so what are we going to be discussing?
So tomorrow we come back, we summarize our thoughts about the whole film, talk about the things maybe that we change or maybe not, and then we can finish up with that ending. What do you think?
Okay, so are we going to talk about the very last two scenes or not?
Now? Let's do it now. Yeah.
Okay, so just quickly then, obviously we're back at MI6. You've got MQ, Moneypenny, Nomi and Tanner, mourning Bond's demise. Now we get the passage. So M reads, he says, "The proper function of man is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days in trying to prolong them. I shall use my time." Now that quote's from American novelist Jack London, first published in 1916. Interestingly, it was also used in the novel You Only Live Twice. It was part of Bond's obituary. It was published in a newspaper, which obviously that's where they got the where they used it from, but I think it sums up Bond perfectly, that little moment. And it's actually from a longer paragraph. And now that one, it reads, I would rather be ashes than dust. I would rather that my spark should burn out in a brilliant blaze than it should be stifled by dry rot. I would rather be a superb meteor, every atom of me in magnificent glow, than a sleepy and permanent planet. The proper function of man is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days in trying to prolong them. I shall use my time. That sounds very much like a reflection of Fleming himself.
I was about to say that
very much. I would rather be a superb meteor, every atom of me in magnificent glow, than a sleepy and permanent planet. That's how Fleming lived his life, isn't it? Completely.
It's that whole thing, isn't it, where his health is starting to fail him and his doctor's saying you've got to drink less, and he's like, fuck that. I'm not going to make the slightest adjustment to how I live life. I'm going to continue exactly as I please. And of course he died young, didn't he, really? And you can look at that as like, what an idiot. Or you can be like, wow, he really lived his life exactly as he wanted to and valued that over a longer life. So
definitely. And people can have their opinions on other people living their lives like that, but ultimately it's up to the individual. And if the individual is happy to live life that way, then fair play to them, I think, so long as they're not harming anyone else in the process. So I think that was a great bit that they used then. And obviously we see them all toast a drink to James, etc. And then M, right, back to work. And he clinks Bond's whiskey tumbler, which was full and had a little bit in, which I liked. But while he's doing that, he's got to be contemplating that he had something to do with Bond's demise. That has to be on his mind. If it wasn't for him to have anything to do with that. So you get that extra heaviness on M's shoulders as he's doing that. But I think that's a nice scene. And then obviously we get the very final scene where we've got Madeline and Mathilde in Bond's Aston Martin V8 driving through the mountain roads, country roads. And we get Madeline saying, Mathilde, I'm going to tell you a story about a man. His name was Bond, James Bond. And then cue the music. We have All the Time in the World starts playing. What do you think of that last little bit? And what do you think of the music coming on?
Yeah, man. I think I don't know. Part of me is like, wow.
Which bit? The music or the line?
Both.
Okay.
Part of me is like, wow. Another equal part of me is like, I don't know. Like the line, let's start with the line.
Yeah.
His name was Bond, James Bond. I don't know if that's brilliant or really cheesy. And I can't tell you what it is. I guess I just don't know. It could be either in my book. And it doesn't, when something really bad happens on screen in a Bond film is in bad quality, my reaction is like, oh no. That is like, is that good? I don't know. It
That's
might
like you coming out of Casino Royale.
Exactly. Yeah. 10 years down the line, I might turn around and be like, actually, that's a brilliant way to end it. Or the other way. I really just don't know whether it's super cheesy. We have all the time in the world. Part of me's like, wow. The other part of me's like, don't know if I like that.
Yeah.
And at the moment they're equally battling each other in my mind, so I don't know. What about you?
I'm firmly on both sides, positive for both. I think the line's great. I love the line. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that line. Mathilde, I'm going to tell you a story about a man. His name was Bond, James Bond. For me, that's absolutely perfect. Do not need to change that whatsoever. The music, I can see why there's a lot more potential issues with that for certain people. But I think, for me, I think it works. I think obviously it's linked and it's got connotations with majesties and everything. But I think it's great. And in terms of the ending, I just think it works. And I've got no issue with it at all. And I really like that ending shot where the car's going through the tunnel and it sort of pulls away and you just see the tunnel getting smaller and smaller with the Aston. And I really like that. And I've got no issue with either. In fact, I really, really enjoy the line, and I think the song is no issue whatsoever. I think it's great. I've just got a couple of other quick references. Again, the Greek mythologies. Now, with this one, obviously Heracles was the sort of virus thing, or the nanobots, or the poison. Now, Heracles itself, it's basically, that's the Greek version. The Romans called Heracles Hercules, so it's the same character in essence. And now he was killed by poison from like the Lydian Hydra, which is this animal which blood is poisonous. And a jealous lover had sent him a garment covered in blood, which they to wear, and obviously he became poisoned. But when he knew he was going to die, he built his own pyre, his own funeral pyre. No one would light it except his closest buddy. And then as his body burns, it's just his immortal side left. And there are kind of links with Bond here. So Bond obviously gets poisoned. He knows he's going to die. And although unknowingly, M, who you could say is one of his closest, I guess, companions, at least in work, giving the order to launch the missiles could almost be seen like the way of igniting Bond's funeral in a way in his pyre. So I thought that's quite a nice little link. And Charlie mentioned as well, with at this point Bond almost becomes a mythological character, with Madeline sort of telling stories about him. I'll tell you a story about a man, his name is Bond, James Bond. There's that whole mythology around him now. So I think that whole thread throughout the film is a really strong one. I think there were certain aspects they could have built on, but I think that was pretty cool.
Nice.
In my opinion.
Yeah, that's nice. There's a lot of thought going into it. I guess there seems to be a lot of thought going into many things, and then other things not so much. And I think it's a shame that mainly with Safin and his thing going on. But
if that had been fleshed out, I think like we said, if we just had the villain sort of speech, maybe the bit with Madeline in the garden saying about the Heracles, the nanobots, the virus, the toxins, or whatever, and then a bit with Bond and Safin, maybe that bit with Matilda in the garden or something else, just to flesh it out. That's all we needed, I think. And then see a bit more with the farm and the factory and stuff like that, I think would have helped. But overall though, man, obviously we're gonna go through, we've got lots of questions through the mailbag. We're going to go through our overall thoughts, and in terms of ranking, it's probably a bit too soon to do that. But one thing is 100% sure: this is going to be one of the most divisive Bond films ever, and I think for a long time, without a doubt.
Big time, full agreement there, man. So I think we'll come back tomorrow and we'll do our kind of final thoughts on the film as a whole, where it sits in the Daniel pantheon, where it sits in the 25 films pantheon, and all of that kind of stuff. And then we'll be back next week with some of those listener discussion points, 90-second reviews, and all that kind of stuff. So let me sound the trumpet. Chris, if you please. It is now time to send in your 90-second reviews. Okay, so hopefully you've been rehearsing and practicing and scripting and getting ready. Obviously, if you've never done one before, we would love to hear from you. We'd always like to hear from some new people that have not sent one in yet. So if that's you, get stuck in, send in a 90-second review. How do you send in a 90-second review? You go to jamesbondradio.com. You look on the right-hand side of the page, there's like a floating button that says send voicemail. You click that, you send it directly through your phone or the computer, and you've got 90 seconds basically to tell us your thoughts on No Time to Die, whether it's a great film that you love, whether you can't stand it, whether you're somewhere in between. We want to hear from you, and we especially want to hear from you if you've never sent in a 90-second review before, because it's always nice to hear from new JBR family members.
Definitely, and well, equally, and obviously anyone that's done before, we want to hear from you again. We just
not that
all right, we're not too
bad enough. Yeah.
But what would be amazing is just to get as many people to leave their review, because I want to see how many absolutely love it, how many absolutely hate it, how many can name their favorite scenes, how many can name the scenes that they think they really needed to change. And just listen to it all and try and get the biggest overall sort of view from the Bond fan community on this new film, No Time to Die. That would be an incredible episode. So we really want as many people as we can to put in your 90-second review. 90 seconds is not long, so good luck to you all, because it's going to be tough going.
Yeah, big time. And if you don't know what we're talking about, 90-second reviews, we're basically going to stitch them all together into one massive episode. with everybody's voicemail. So basically, you get to have your say. You've listened to us, for 3 weeks harping on about this film.
Bless you.
Now it's the time. Yeah, God knows why you would want to do that, but you've stuck it out, and we're proud of you for doing it. But so this is your chance for you to have your say and let us know if you think we're barking up the wrong tree, if you think it's the worst Bond film ever. I've seen a few people say it's worse than Die Another Day. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace to the memory of Fleming and Cubby and everybody else.
Well, we definitely want those to leave a review.
Yeah, definitely do it, because it'll be a good laugh. But so get stuck in, and that will be coming out next week at some point. So we're going to be back tomorrow just to with our final thoughts on the film. Yep. Until then, I've been Tom Sears.
I've been Chris Wright.
And we'll see you in the morning, everybody.
We'll see you then. Bye.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Good night.